Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast from South Africa. I have Andre Bothma, and he is a entrepreneur. He is founder of Rafu. It's a tax and financial services company, and he helps business owners make more money and spend less in taxes. So something we could all use. And I'm really happy to have him on and discuss his company. Andre, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Briefly chronicle your journey, and I'm excited to dive into the questions.
Yeah, so I first started a company called Tax Maverick back in September 2021, off the back of creating content on YouTube and X since 2018. And I built a decent following around tax education and teaching small business. And that's how I got started into entrepreneurship. So I quit my full-time job. I did tax as a side hustle at the time. And then I saw, hey, the numbers work because I had the following on social media. And that's how I got started in the business and then closed Tax Maverick in order to start Irafu.
Interesting. And I love this story and journey. And we'll dive right into the question is your Hafu, what is your clients that come to you that work with you? Where are they based? What are they looking to solve? A problem or pain point, or what are they trying to achieve when working with you?
Primarily, I work with small businesses. And in the South African context, if we were to compare it to American or US numbers, it's up to about 100,000 USD, maybe up to 200,000 USD per year. So that's what the company would earn or the individual. And so my my plan is to optimize and to strategically help them minimize their taxes where possible. So simplifying their structure, because I think a lot of accountants fall foul to creating very complicated structures for small businesses. And then, and so that's the tax side and optimizing for tax savings. But then on the other side, helping them make more money is I've realized that a lot of people don't know how to use social media to not build personal brands per se, but basically how to make the company and the person more visible online. Because if you don't exist in the online world, you are basically cutting off. Online world is almost now more real than the offline world, so to speak. That's how big those two sides are. And so I play a big role in the sales and marketing efforts and yeah, making sure that what the small businesses do make them seen. And that's where I also get involved. So it's beyond just doing the numbers or doing the books.
Interesting. So next question I have for you is when what you what services do you have that help clients? Because you looks like you have personal, international, and small business tax. So talk about how you service each of your clients, and we'll delve into specific case scenarios and situations.
Yeah, so for individuals, it's primarily ongoing tax compliance. In South Africa, we have a situation where tax for individuals can be automated, but the more different income sources you have, the more complicated your tax return. It's not as complicated as the American system or the UK tax system, but in South Africa, there's a lot of scammers. So being a good tax professional, just filing people's taxes is already a good start. And then I also delve into what I would call living tax planning, because a lot of people plan for or do tax planning for when they're going to retire or set up a trust and things like that. But good tax planning is also helping you paying less tax as an individual over the long term. In terms of international tax, I usually step into the role of looking at double taxation agreements, people who want to immigrate from South Africa to a different country like the US or Canada or Europe, but also advising on some company transactions. If they have a South African company, but they also have a branch in the UK, I can help with the tax implications of that international transaction. And then for small businesses, like I said, it is optimizing the tax strategy, because a lot of small businesses don't know what their options are for mitigating their taxes. And there's one really nice system in South Africa called Small Business Corporation. And if you qualify, it can save you about 8 to 12% in taxes per year.
Interesting. So a lot of the question is, a lot of the listeners or listeners or viewers are America or Canada, a little bit of the Europe, UK. So people listening to this, how can you help them if they're living in Canada or America or UK? Why would they come to you?
So I do have some American clients who do want to either set up in South Africa. So the setup costs in South Africa it's rather small. It's $10 to set up a company in South Africa. So the setup cost, or even just creating a South African leg, if you wanted to, like South Africa is basically a starting foothold into what you could do in Africa if you want to expand your services. And South Africa has one of the best banking systems in the world. Some European clients, I've got a client in the UK who specifically opened a South African company here, which I managed for them, because of the trade agreements between South Africa and Europe. And so in South Africa, the ease of business in terms of entry for small businesses, online small businesses, are relatively inexpensive in terms of getting started. And you could get by fairly tax efficient for your first 50,000 USD. But that's just the tax side and a basic company setup. On the other hand, because of my experience on social media and my focus on teaching the concepts of small business, I can also hop on as a non-executive director from a finance perspective of how to make financial decisions to help the company either make more money or save money, and then prepare for taxes. So it's not just a tax service. The small business side, thinking strategically about how you want to grow your small business, is something that I also assist with.
Interesting. And the other question is, how do you deal with all the different jurisdictional laws and regulations surrounding tax and investments if your wealthy clients have international real estate? Or talk about how you navigate the regulatory landscape.
Yeah, I had a tax partner at one stage, and I asked him, is it worth it learning the tax code of another country? And he said, no, because it takes you 10 to 15 years to learn one country. It's going to take you another 10, 15 years to learn the tax code of another country. So I often partner with other tax advisors in that particular jurisdiction that we need expertise in. So if I've got a UK client or somebody that wants to do a business in the UK, I would partner with the UK tax person. The same thing in America, although America is more difficult because of the state taxes. So you have to find somebody in the state that would handle the tax. But mostly when it comes to so I understand the South African tax jurisdiction very well, and also the double taxation agreements between the different countries. And so my buck could get all the way until such a point that the person would need to get an advisor in the country that's also affected. It's generally not advised to be a tax advisor of more than one country unless you've spent quite a bit of time in that country and then you've moved back to your home country or something like that. But that doesn't happen very often in our field.
And then a follow-up question I have is, what processes and procedures do you have in place to prevent people from working with you that are trying to launder or embezzle money?
That is I haven't had that question before. I suppose the caliber of small businesses that I tend to deal with are your creative entrepreneurs. So usually they're solopreneurs, or they don't have very big teams. And the same thing on the tech side is it's usually software developers, web developers, brand designers. And so it's usually small teams, maybe 1 to 4 or 5 employees. When it comes to fraud, embezzlement of funds, you can call it money laundering, all the financial related crimes. I think the one that I've dealt with the most is intentional tax evasion. And intentional tax evasion is sometimes this difference between tax avoidance, I want to pay less tax, and tax evasion, as in I'm just not going to declare it. And so we stand by a very strong code of ethics because I'm a member of the South African Institute of Tax Practitioners. So we draw a hard line when it comes to people who want to commit intentional tax evasion. Luckily, I have not come across a lot of criminality. I suppose my company hasn't been around for long enough to have dealt with that. I think on the bigger cases with the big four, your KPMG, Deloitte, EY, and Ernst Young, Ernst Young and PwC, I think there are much bigger risk factors for them because they deal with billions. But the tax evasion is probably the number one that I need to navigate around if it comes to my desk.
Interesting. Talk about like your typical American or Canadian or British client, and they're listening to this podcast and they wanted to set up a corporation or business for their taxes, etc. What is their makeup? What is their nationality? Is it going to be South African citizen and they basically married an American, or they're just like they have South African roots and they have South African business? Talk about that kind of client avatar.
I would say if your business is online and you want to partner with South African firms, the benefit of partnering, often what you would see in a tech space, tech and AI, you often see this where American firms would reach out and either set up a South African firm, but with, let's say, a developer that lives in South Africa. So then they can set up the company for not a massive cost. So instead of hiring somebody from America to partner with them, they might hire a South African developer, pay them, let's say, 70% of what they would have paid a person from America. So their setup costs are cheaper in South Africa. And then the South African developer gets a very nice income with their own company. But also we can operate as a proxy director to make the setup of the business easier. So you could have a business bank account within 48 hours. You can have a company set up within 48 hours. So the setup is fairly quickly. But I would say back to basics, or the best, what's that phrase again? Best business practices, right? Best business practices which you copy. And so the idea is if it's not a reason why you should enter the African market, or you don't have people in South Africa that you want to work with, then maybe stay in your jurisdiction until, hey, this person, there's this idea, let's take it to South Africa. And
Interesting. Yeah. And how do you deal with, because you mentioned you deal with a lot of creative entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, a lot of them are digital nomads and they live in one jurisdiction and they have clients, and they're all over the place throughout the year. How do you deal with that?
I've got a couple of rule of thumbs. The first thing is, please get yourself on a online bookkeeping platform. Xero is very international. You've got QuickBooks that's also international, but then they also have multiple streams of income in different directions. It could be Upwork, it could be PayPal. They could send physical invoices, wires transfers. Ideally have one business bank account where everything, and this applies worldwide. So this is not just South African ideas. Have one business bank account. That's a good idea. Have all those different streams of income go into that one business bank account. And that makes it easy for whoever does the tax or the accounting to sift through what is the business receipts and all the business related expenses. From there, it's also easier to see what your profit and loss statement looks like on a monthly basis and make business decisions from there. The issue with moving in and between different countries will depend on the country where you are tax resident. I don't want to get too complex here. South Africa's rule is fairly simple. If you are in foreign employment, traditional foreign employment with an employment contract, if you work outside South Africa for more than half a year, a significant portion of that income is exempt. And so it just depends on what special rules would apply to you as a creative entrepreneur, digital nomad. I know Europe is very forward thinking in terms of how they support digital nomads. You've got Malta that I think has a digital nomad visa where you could get a You could get a Schengen visa and a Maltese tax residency by just telling the Maltese government, no, I'm a digital nomad. And then, I don't know, you pay a management accountant and they can set it up for you. I still don't know how it works, but South Africa is ideal for digital nomads to work in. I don't think it's as ideal when it comes to home affairs, things like and passport and things like that. But in terms of a destination to come and work and live online, Cape Town is one of the best destinations in the world to do that.
Yeah, I've heard great things about Johannesburg and Cape Town and South Africa and like the cost of living and the weather, and it's great for digital nomads. Next question I have for you is with AI and artificial intelligence, either using it to automate, delegate, eliminate tasks, or how to improve efficiency. How are you using or thinking about AI?
It's something that I think about and use on a daily basis. My company, Rafu, is a two-person company, me and my wife, but I think Grok is now my third employee because I've got Grok open on my second screen, and then I've got my main screen where my emails and my communications and my workflows are. And every now and then, instead of Googling the question, I will Grok the question. So I've got a saying, just Grok it. And I find that if you can prompt the LLM in more detail, when you tell a toddler to do something, you say, pick up your toys or do this thing. If you prompt the AI in the same manner, you aren't going to get very good results. So if you want to work it for work purposes or even general life usage, my suggestion is actually to talk to it as if it were your peer, but 10 times smarter, right? You can still catch it out because you are if you're an expert at what it is you do, you will know things that it doesn't necessarily understand. It might have the knowledge, but it doesn't have understanding. But so prompt it as with enough context and say who you are and tell it. And sometimes I've given it some legal questions, but then people forget to add their own interpretation. So what I do is when I ask it the legal question, I will then say, here's my interpretation. Tell me your take. And then I analyze it. Because when you give your interpretation or what you want out of it, the answer that you get from it is much more effective. And then on social media, I recently started using LinkedIn a lot more. I'm more familiar with X and YouTube because that's where I built my platforms. But on LinkedIn, I'll come up with a tweet or one liner, and then I'll ask it, listen, can you help me expand this into a 150, 200 word LinkedIn post? And then Bob's your uncle, I'll change the way it said what I wanted to say, but it's okay. Alex Ramosi, I've said this before, and I'm going to try and capture it a bit better. What AI and these LLMs are doing or enabling is decreasing the speed of online activity between thought and action. So now you think it, and then if you use AI, that speed of getting it posted is so much quicker compared to ChatGPT when it first came out a couple of years ago. But yeah, I use it on a daily basis.
Yeah. And my question for you is, you're the first person, because I mean, I use ChatGPT, but some people are using like Notion, Perplexity, and Claude. Why?
DeepSeek.
Yeah. Why are you using Grok over all of the others? Is it because you have a massive following on Twitter, or just you find it bodes better for your audience, or?
Yeah, I think I liked Grok initially, the idea of an LLM that is not as I imagine if you imagine your LLM wearing clothes, I imagine ChatGPT wears a suit and a tie. And Grok is wearing a leather jacket and a black t-shirt, right?
Mm.
And that's in its first iterations. And I loved it for that reason. And it's still like that. But then I got advice on a YouTube video that I watched where they said, but there's so many different AI platforms. There's so many different news. Every week there's something new. How do you keep up with everything? And what they said is pick your platform. So you might pick ChatGPT. I might pick Grok. somebody else might pick this, somebody else might pick that. But then you study your platform and you become an expert at Grok, or you become you become an expert at ChatGPT for yourself and how you use it. And I guess the reason why I prefer using Grok is it feels like a first mover. It came out with deep search and the think function before ChatGPT had it. And it's still actually comparatively better. I think it's also cheaper than ChatGPT for the same functions, and you don't have the same limitations. Yeah, I think those are the reasons why I prefer a Grok over the other more, I guess, used platforms.
Yeah. And then the other question I have for you is, Trump is a black swan. He opens his mouth and things happen. So how do you view Trump's words or actions in terms of clients, in terms of taxes, and how are you planning or preparing? Because whatever you would obviously tariffs and immigrate, all this stuff, how are you viewing Trump's words and actions in how it's affecting your business and company?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, because of the niche that I work in, I think my reaction to what Trump says and doesn't affect my business as much, although I think it's important to study the after effects of what's happening and then you can do two things in reaction. You can either complain very loudly on social media and unsure about what the next 4 years holds for you, and so you can be vocal about it. But there's this guy who wrote this book, Patrick David. He wrote this book, Your Next 5 Moves. The book is called Your Next 5 Moves. And although he doesn't say it, he talks about these are the different 5 moves that an entrepreneur should make. In my mind, I don't really care much about the content. What's more important is to always think about what's your next 5 moves in general. So if this thing, whatever Trump is saying, and with all the tariffs, does it have a direct impact, and can I do something about it in my own business? So does it have a direct impact? Not as much, and can I do something about it? Not really. Should I have an opinion on it? It's hard for me to say. Yes, I'm on X, and that is where my biggest following is. But I think I take a stoic stance on things that happens on an international level, so that I don't lose my head in my own business. Because I think it's ultimately, I went to a talk about 2 weeks ago where the guy said vision and strategy, and what is the company going to do for the next 5 to 10 years? And your team must know what you're doing. But he was speaking to a room of business owners who doesn't have employees. Right? Come on, so in my mind, it's more important to say, am I reaching my turnover goals, my cash flow targets? Am I hitting my social media targets, my metrics? Am I doing this despite the things that Trump is saying, despite the things that's happening politically in South Africa? And at least do I have something at least that can navigate what our main problem in South Africa is, like cost of data. So you try and be on different platforms and navigate that and make it cost effective for people to meet you online. So you have to play the cards that you dealt with. And luckily, I'm not in America where the tariffs would have hit me directly, or in physical products, I think I've been hit the most. Digital products, not as much, from what I can see.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And how can people find you and connect with you and follow you?
I think the easiest is Andre Bothma, and then just type tax after that, because I'm on YouTube. I'm also on X, Andre Bothma Tax. And then my company is irhaview.com. So it's quite easy to find. And listen, if there's any entrepreneurs that wants to come and see Cape Town and just grab a coffee and chat entrepreneurship and AI, those are two things I'm very keen to talk about.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on, and a really interesting conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Christopher. Thanks for the chat.